Buongiorno. Welcome to this edition of DURKO's Notebook for the 2024 Italian Grand Prix. What a week it was. Shitload to talk about. So pull up a pew, sit back, relax and enjoy the show. You wouldn't fucking read about it. As we return to the Monza circuit, one of the strangest incidents I've ever seen in all the years I've been watching F1 was, of course, Bernd Meinlander in the safety car, this time the Aston Martin, not the Merc. And he had a bit of an off because he had no brakes. He tried a Scandinavian flick to wash some speed off, and that didn't work because he had no brakes. And, of course, he went off the parabolica and straight into the wall and bent the shit out of that Aston Martin. So not a real good look for Aston Martin as a brand when their cars don't work, even after Alonso's Valkyrie broke down in Monaco. It's a week to forget for Aston Martin as a Formula One team and also as a car manufacturer. The big topic, of course, over the weekend was all based around the discussion of the McLaren team itself. And it all comes back to lap one and to the strategy the team thought about throughout the course of the race. But instead of just discussing the whole race, I just want to get to the key points that I think are important. And, of course, I think the question I've got to ask you, now I'm not being racist, I'm not being biased towards any particular nation, racial group, sexual orientation, religion, whatever you want to call it. I'm just looking at the person for who they are. And I've got to ask the question, is Orlando Norris, really a team player overall? He didn't get on too well with Dan Rick. Obviously with Sainz he got on well, but was there things behind the scenes there, or is Sainz just a true gentleman? But I think with Ricciardo and Piastri, he seems to have a bit of an issue with some people, and I think that trend has continued to the current day with Piastri as his teammate, because I think there's a lot of tension there, and I think Zach Brown and Andrea Stella are going to sit down and iron this out to really knock it on the head before it becomes an even bigger issue and drags on. Of course, the talk was about the papaya rules, and if that's another word for saying team rules, well, they're non-existent. But I think it's something they've got to fix before Azerbaijan in a week's time to iron out the issues and come to some sort of a gentleman's agreement, team orders, whatever you want to call it, handshake agreement, who's ever in the first corner, they own the race, agreement between them before this becomes a shit fight for McLaren, especially because they're in a chance of potentially catching up to or beating Red Bull in either the constructors or the drivers. And if they lose one of them due to stupidity of not being able to manage the two drivers, it's going to be egg on the face for Zach Brown and potentially Andrea Stella as well as the team boss to not call their drivers into line and to deal with it and to manage the situation, the fluid dynamic of that situation as it's happening, which I think's got to be done and done soon because it's just becoming a joke and everyone's got eyes on that team to see what's going to happen next. Now, the big question was, people said, was Piastri too hot going into that corner? Or was Norris meant to take the corner? As I always say, Norris couldn't start a two-stroke lawnmower, let alone a race, but he's got through the first couple of corners. He's actually had a fairly decent start compared to what he normally does. But the thing is, Piastri's obviously been given the upgrade packages that Norris gets most of the time, and Piastri had a quick car. And if you look at these couple of pictures, you can see from the imagery that Norris left a fair gap there for Piastri to come into, and there was real estate there for Piastri to jump on, which is what he did. So I don't disagree that Piastri did anything wrong. Was he at fault? Absolutely not. Was it a fair move? Yes, I believe it was. And I'm not saying that as a biased Aussie towards Oscar Piastri. I'm saying that towards him as a racing driver in an F1 car at the beginning of his career trying to cement his place in the world. Now, you got to look at him. He's not the most exciting bloke in terms of an interview, but maybe he turns that energy into his driving, which is something maybe Dan Rick could have done instead of being, the most boisterous, perfect marketing guy for all these teams. If he maybe put some of that energy from his personality to his driving, Dan Rick might have got further than the races he's already won. Now, that's a completely biased opinion, I know, but that's just me saying what I'm saying. I think Piastri's a kid to watch, and he's just going to keep fighting and fighting until another team poaches him when his McLaren contract runs out. K-Mag, he's got a race banned for Azerbaijan, and the word is Beerman's going to replace him, so Ollie will be in the seat. He got that race ban, obviously, because he's run out of points for his coming together with Gasly, which was a complete non-event. It was just a pathetic coming together, and even Gasly came forward and said it was just a stupid bloody decision to penalise K-Mag that hard. So I don't know what the FIA think, and they just seem to screw up penalties time after time. So you've got to give credit to Ferrari and Leclerc for their home win. They just got the strategy right with the one stopper, and it worked, whereas McLaren failed with their strategy. And McLaren strategy team, again, just fail and fail and fail. So well done to the Scuderia. Now, I just want to move on to some general discussion. Now, George Russell, there is talk that he's out of contract at the end of next season. Obviously, Antonelli's been signed. The hot rumour is that Verstappen's going to do another season with Red Bull and then potentially go to Merc because Toto keeps knocking on his door. And it's no secret that Jos has got the shits and he's constantly boring out Christian Horner's ear to say, what are you doing? You've got to fix this car for my son. He's going to go and win more championships, more races. He's losing a lot of credibility. He's, at the back of the front pack. And it's becoming embarrassing for the Red Bull team that was great, but maybe they're on their down, like so many other teams do. They have their peak and they come down. It's just a bell curve of emotion for driving and the results that they get. I mean, of course, for Red Bull and especially for George Russell, there's no loyalty there because we saw Damon Hill back in the years ago, 96, won his championship with Williams, and then all of a sudden, bang, sorry, we don't need you anymore. For 97, he was off to drive a bucket of shit arrows and drove at the back of the field until he almost won the Hungarian Grand Prix. But, as I said, there's no loyalty to George. He hasn't won a championship for them. He's won a couple of races, but that's about it, and Toto might look at it and say, time for George to go. Now, the final thing I want to say is obviously the rumour that's been going around and around and around is Adrian Newey. Ferrari are going to pay enough for him, so he is reportedly off to Aston Martin Racing for 3 years for $100 million US. Good luck to him. I hope he can deliver a car for Alonso, because maybe that was the retainer that this could have been signed up some time ago when Alonso said, I'm going to hang around at Aston Martin because there's a good chance Lawrence is going to get Adrian Newey to design a car for me and to see what he can deliver. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, interesting times ahead for the rest of the season. So until next time in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, I thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a week's time or so when I report back for the next edition of DURKO's Notebook. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.